Okay.
Example, I interviewed my manager there, and in full disclosure, he was a terrible person to interview. He doesn't like talking about communication or management very much or feelings. So I kind of disguised the interview with him as a business meeting where we talked a lot about tips, bonds, but I kind of like worked in a few questions. So if we got too much into the soft side, he would get irritated pretty quick. So maybe that says something about my boss in the industry. I don't know. Okay, so why the financial industry? Unfortunately, not everyone jumps into a big pile of money like Scrooge McDuck, although my boss frequently does. Anyway. Um, it's my boss said the thing I took out of it is he asked him why he got into finance, and he said it's the story of how the world works and how money flows, and I thought that was really interesting because the world really wouldn't work without finance of some sort. We need banks, we need lending, we need capital investment, and um, if we don't have finance, you know, it stops. Really, the money is what makes the world go around. So I thought that was interesting. Another thing he talked about is staying up to date on the news, like reading a lot. He reads a lot, like Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg. He's always engaged, and he's engaged a little more broadly than what most people in the firm. I'll talk about later. But finance, when you're working in finance, you're very niche focused, very specialized when you're not a manager. So when you're doing something like working in fixed income or working with equities, you really dwell down into that industry that you're working in. And I say, yeah, it depends on your sector and industry, and that's kind of what I mean by that. It's you're going to be data driven, but you're going to be data driven. You're looking for certain. You got to be data specific. You got to tune out the noise. There's a lot of noise in finance. So this is going up, this is going down, but you really have to become an expertise in what your boss wants you to become an expertise in. For example, if you're looking at fixed income, you may be an expertise in short duration bonds, under a year. That might be your industry, and you have to absorb everything, not necessarily about bonds and fixed income because it's so vast, but short duration bonds is what they want you to know. Equities, they may not want you to know everything about equity, but they may really want you to know about offshore oil drillers. So you get really into that. So you get really niche focused. The financial industry is always changing. Even within your focus, it's changing frequently. As a manager, I said he's more top level, he's more strategy focused. So he's really got to deal with the changes and everything that's going on because it's going to redirect the strategy for the firm. And then why the financial industry? You can make money in it, obviously. A lot of people do. Some people don't. It's really like any other industry. I think people this is what people think of when they think of the financial industry, but most of them is just sitting at their desk in some cubicle and working on stuff. There we go. Managing in the financial industry. I talked about this already. Firms have a strategy, and that's what the manager does. The manager is the top level guy. He delegates the work. You think of your strategy as a niche. Markets are huge. Talked about that. I think last October there was over $1 trillion in bonds wiped out right after November, right after the election. So it was the week of probably the 9th through the 16th. That week after the election was the biggest bond crash actually since the 50s. But there's a ton. But since then the curves have tightened back up, and bonds have started to come back, and interest rates haven't been rising as rapidly. But things got kind of out of control there for a while. So they're huge, and money can be lost and gained in very short amounts of time. My manager said that what makes a good manager, and I asked about that, he just says accountability. He wants everybody on the team to be accountable. Like if I bring him a report, it's something that I have to put time into, because if I give him something that doesn't do well, I have to have a reason why it's not doing well. I have to have a reason why I picked something I picked. I just can't kind of throw darts at a board. So accountability is huge. Managers, I've talked about this. They delegate the work. They break the teams off into the into their areas, so the fixed income guys and the equity guys, and they drill down from there. And really, there's not a lot of teamwork or collaboration that goes in. The people that working, at least at D.B. Fitzpatrick, are very smart, and they're very, very good at what they do, so they're really able to kind of manage themselves, come together once a week maybe for a weekly meeting. He really doesn't like to, there's not a whole lot of meeting up within teams. Managers make the final decision. Challenges of working in the industry. Obviously, there's many options, sometimes only one right answer, depending on what your overall strategy is. Emotions run high, and this is something I probably should have talked about. As a manager, you're dealing with a lot of people as well. At least he is. I don't ever deal with people, and not very few of the people working at D.B. Fitzpatrick have to deal with clients, but the managers do. And so people will call in and wonder why something's happening, and you can't be pressured or swayed by people's opinions. You have to be confident that your firm's strategy, and know that you're in it for the long haul, and be able to exude confidence to investors. And markets change quickly. Talked about money can come in and come out very quickly, as we saw with bond markets in November. Alright, so how to communicate in finance. There's really not a whole lot of communication outside the firm. Everything is very private. There's not intellectual property in finance. You can't get, a lot of times you don't have patents. There is intellectual property, but there's not patents and necessarily, so if you've got a model on Excel you use to value your bonds, you wouldn't be able to patent that model. That's just a model. So things have to stay really quiet. Like, I don't get to see the models when I work there because I'm an intern. So they don't share all that with me. They don't share the portfolios with me, but not the models. So you communicate largely within the firm. You got weekly meetings, and then you have other stakeholders, future investors, people, maybe if you're managing pension fund managers, and so forth. Channels for communication. We place letters on the phone only, never placed by email. You can communicate through email, you just can't place an order through email. Newsletters we give out monthly, or quarterly, to investors. There's face-to-face, and the face-to-face people, communication is done with between my boss and the investors. They'll come in and they'll visit him in his office and they'll talk. But when you're a manager, it's, as I say, it's very top level. It's very face-to-face communication. It's very strategic oriented. And when you're not a manager in finance, it's very niche focused. Social media. Some firms are getting more into social media. There's not a whole lot of social media emphasis in D.B. Fitzpatrick. I don't even think we have a Facebook page actually. I think some firms do, but it probably depends on the size as well. How to get into the industry. Should have an interest in finance, at least some interest in finance and economics. You need to read a lot. That's kind of what got me interested in it, is read a lot about a lot of different things and figure out kind of if you were working in the industry, what sector and what specific niche within that sector interests you. You're gonna be somewhat comfortable with data. You should get your MBA. So I think you all did pretty good there. And then financial licenses and certifications. So like, if you're going to be a broker, you need your Series 7. If you're going to become a registered investment advisor, you need your Series 65. If you want to become a financial planner, that's a CFP. If you want to become a financial advisor, it's like my boss, and that's a 4-year exam to get your usually 4-year course average to get your CFA. It's the top designation in the industry. So yeah, that's finance for you. Questions?
Or question.
Yeah.
Do you think the climate of your particular firm that you work with, it seems kind of like stifling, but yet they all enjoy what they do, but it seems like a very kind of like high-strung environment. Would you say that that is quite common to the financial industry?
I couldn't say. I've only worked in this firm. I think.
From what you hear about, like, from other
Yeah,
people?
I think it's if you're looking for like a tech startup, you know, so like fun culture where people are sitting around in beanbag chairs, it's not your industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in reading, what do you prefer to read to get knowledge about this industry?
Well, I mean, I say read, I just mean like, I like the Wall Street Journal. I read all the time. I like, you know, Bloomberg, any kind of Bloomberg news, but I'll go to like Barclays. Go to Barclays. That's where I get a lot of, if I'm reading about, trying to learn about fixed income, the main source for short, intermediate, long duration bonds, as well as like mortgage-backed securities, and go to Barclays for that. But I'd say like just find a publication you really like Wall Street Journal. They do a pretty good job giving you the news. Yeah.
Do you see yourself in the financial industry after you get your MBA?
Yeah, I do at some point. Maybe not. Maybe at this firm. Maybe not at this firm. But yeah, at some point.
Do you, or does your firm try to follow the S&P, or do you look at bond
No,
markets?
no. That's a good question. I can't exactly tell you because I have to sign another thing with the industry. I have to sign non-disclosures and non-competes. We can't talk about like our actual strategy. But I will tell you, it's popular to benchmark. You're using something like the S&P. Maybe more common than using the S&P is using like a world exchange fund. So like the MSCI is a fund that tracks the essentially global stocks. So it's a good benchmark for global equities. And then Vanguard has a total world ETF. That's also a good benchmark. And then for fixed income, Barclays is the best.
Cool. Thanks
Looking
for
at
that.
benchmarking.
I think you did fabulous.
Yeah.